In this video, we're going to go over how to cut your video and adjust your audio. So I'm going to start with this Manatee Beach story, and I have an interview in my bin, and there are a couple of ways to get my interview onto my timeline. I could just grab it from my bin and then drop it directly onto my timeline like this. That is one way. And then I would have to trim it, the beginning and the end, because usually it doesn't start at the right time, or maybe you only really wanted just a clip in the middle. And so the more professional way to edit your video before it gets on your timeline is to double click it here in your bin. And then you're going to see it over here on the monitor on the left. So you can select your in and your out point by adjusting this here. And let's say this is where we actually wanted to start. We would hit I on the keyboard for in, and then I would take this and scroll to the end. And let's say that's the end of it. I'm going to hit O for out, and then I can grab this here, just click and hold, and then drag it onto my timeline. So that's another way to do it. Sometimes you're only going to want a short clip of the video. You may just want one soundbite. And so perhaps you've already identified, okay, I just want this time to this time. And it might be helpful for you to zoom in, so you can click on that and zoom in here. And that will make it a little bit easier if you have a really long video and you're only trying to identify, a few seconds of it. That will help you. And so you can adjust this here, just zooming in and out, and that might be helpful for you before you drag and drop it. There are a couple of other things you can do with the drag and drop. So if I hover underneath the video, you'll see that it says drag video only. If I hover over here to the right, it'll say drag audio only. You might have instances where you're trying to only drag the audio. So if you move over here, you'll see that was the little tiny piece that I had selected, but let's give you a wider view. So I'll do another in and an out. And if I drag the audio over here, you're going to see it's only showing up on the audio channel down here. So all of these here, A1, A2, A3, these are audio tracks. And everything above this little line in the middle is a video track. So I might only want to drag my video for whatever reason. You have that option. And if I want to delete this stuff, I could just click on it and then hit delete. Or I can highlight all the stuff I want to delete and then just hit delete on my keyboard. So those are a couple of things that you can do to kind of get started cutting your video. So if you chose to just drag and drop it onto the timeline, or let's say when you did your in and your out, it wasn't precise, you're going to be able to zoom in on your timeline here by clicking this circle, dragging all the way to the left, and then the farther left you go, the more you zoom in. And if you edit when you're zoomed in, it'll really help you be more precise. So another thing that will help you is if you open up your audio channel here, just click and drag and open it up. It'll help you adjust your audio levels. It'll also help you see sometimes where to start. So let's say if this video was, let's say, oh, this one was cut. Maybe he doesn't start saying something until here. Maybe this is really where you want to start after all. There's a couple of things that you can do. You could use the razor tool, and that's this little tool right over here. So click on that and it'll change from your selector tool to your razor tool. And you can come on over here. If this is where you want to actually start, you can split the clip like that. And now you have two different clips. So let's say this is really what you wanted. You didn't really want this stuff. You can just click on that and hit delete. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do that is to hover your mouse at the beginning of this video here, and you see this little red arrow. You can click and just drag it over. So that's another way to cut. There's also lots of hotkeys, so you can use different buttons on your keyboard to cut. And if you hover over these icons, it'll tell you what the hotkey is for that. So that's one way to do that. The next thing I want to do is show you audio. So all of these things here are audio waves, and I can kind of see by looking at these that it was a little loud at some points. And so you don't want to be overmodulated. And at the same time, you don't want it to be too quiet. And so this audio meter here is really, really helpful for identifying a good balance of audio, which is usually around -12 decibels or so. So let's play a clip and we're going to take a look at how many decibels that is and identify if we need to lower the volume or raise the volume.
When I was about 6.
So you could see that it started turning red and it was really loud. So this audio may not even be a good enough quality to use, but sometimes you're like, well, it's just barely touching the red. Maybe we can salvage it. We might be able to use it if I lower the volume. One way to lower the volume is to hover your mouse above this line here, click, and then you can move it down or up. So click and you just hold. I haven't let go of my mouse yet. So if I move the line up, it'll be louder. If I move the line down, all the way down, it mutes it. So let's say I lowered it to about here. Let's listen to that piece again.
Oh, I started playing beach volleyball when I was about 6.
So then it's a little bit between -12 and 6, and that's pretty good. If you wanted to lower it just a little bit more and it was hard for you to kind of be precise, you can adjust your workspace like that by dragging it up and pulling this down, and that'll help you be a little more precise when you move it up and down. So that should help you with your audio editing a lot. The next thing I wanted to show you here is how to add B-roll. So this is your basic clip. Let's say this is the interview that you have and you wanted to add other video on top of it to help supplement the storytelling. I've already imported a B-roll folder and I have lots of clips here. I'm going to start with a wide shot. So I'm going to double click there and I'm going to identify the time that I want. Let's say I want to start here. I'm going to hit I, and then maybe I want to hit O, that's where it's going to end. And maybe I wanted to start when he starts talking about manatees right around here. So I've dragged this onto my timeline and I can zoom in a little bit. And I can also hover over the clip to see the duration. So if you look at the bottom there, it'll say that it's about 5 seconds long, which might be appropriate for the video that you're editing. The standard is about 3 seconds to hold people's attention. So if there's not something specific that you're trying to show and it requires 5 seconds, you could go ahead and shorten that to about 3 seconds or so. And usually that's a good pace for B-roll. And then we also want to take a look at the audio that's attached to our B-roll. So the B-roll went into the V2 track. So this is the video track that's on top of V1. So anything that goes up top is going to layer on top of what's underneath when we look at the video tracks. When you look at the audio tracks, I'm going to move this down here. If I click on this, you can see that it's attached to my B-roll. So this is my B-roll audio, and this is my interview audio. So I'm going to want to play my B-roll audio to make sure that it's the right volume, because if he's talking and then I see video of manatees and there's audio in the background, I don't want that audio to overpower what he's saying. So I'm going to hit this M button to mute the track. That way, the only thing I'm listening to is audio channel 2 or the track 2. So I'm going to hit my space bar, or I can hit this play button here. And it's just kind of people talking. It's not, I mean, I don't know that manatees make a sound. Maybe splash sounds or something would be better. But I mean, it's ambient sound. It kind of puts you into this manatee viewing center. But the audio volume was a little high. I mean, it really was around -30 decibels, which is pretty optimal for B-roll natural sound or B-roll nats. But let's say I wanted to lower it just a little bit. I could do that here, and then I could listen to it again. Let's say the person in the background was talking and they said like a profanity or something that was completely irrelevant and would pull your audience out of the video. You could just mute that because it might not be appropriate. It may not add to your storytelling. then you could drag this all the way to the bottom, and now it's muted. If you're going to mute your audio for a reason like that, you could also just delete this audio clip. One way to do that is to right click on your video and you could unlink, which means that you're now unlinking the video from the audio. So if I move this around, these no longer move together. And that way I could highlight this and hit delete. There are a couple other ways to do this. So one way is I'm just going to undo, and that way you can see that they're going to be matched up again. Or I could right click, highlight them both, and I could right click and link them back up for the purposes of showing you, like if they're linked now. If I wanted to just delete this part, I could hold down, let's see, Option. There we go. I'm holding down Option, and then I'm only going to highlight my audio, and then I'll be able to delete that. There's lots of different ways to do this in Premiere Pro, but that's a couple of ways. And then the next clip of B-roll I want to add, let's say, is a medium shot. So this is going to be the next clip. I'm going to do my in, and let's say my out's going to be about there. I'm going to drag and drop it right here. One common mistake that people make is that they drop it like here, and then I see one clip of B-roll, I go back to the person's face, and then I see another clip of B-roll. And that can get quite distracting. So usually you want several clips of B-roll in a row. 3 is a good magic number. So if you have 3 clips of 3-second B-roll clips, that's usually a good amount to kind of help complement your storytelling and your pacing. What happened with this B-roll clip is that it zoomed in because it's 4K. So I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to scale to frame size. And now you see it's the right frame. So the next thing I want to do, I can move this over here, or I could right click in this empty space, ripple delete, and that'll help me not accidentally overlap it. That happens sometimes when you move it manually. So the ripple delete is a really good option for that. I'm going to then add my close up, for example, do my in and my out, and I'm going to drop that right here. This will be my close-up B-roll, and usually you try to use video clips that will help with some kind of sequence, or sometimes it's text. Maybe it's a graphic that's matching what you're talking about, or an infographic. You just want to make sure that it lines up with what you're saying. So those are a couple of quick ways to use video channels to shorten things, to use your razor tool, and to adjust your audio. So stay tuned for the next video so we can get into more complex video editing tips.